Venue coordinator handed us a single key card and said, "The Loft Suite. Congratulations." She said it the way someone says, "Enjoy your meal," before walking away. Warm, automatic, already moving on to the next thing. I stood there holding my overnight bag with one hand and the key card with the other, staring at the word suite on the little paper sleeve, and I heard Haley beside me make a sound that was not quite a laugh. "We'll take it," she said. The coordinator was already gone. I looked at Haley. She looked at the elevator. "Don't," she said. "I haven't said anything." "Your face said it." "My face is neutral." "Your face is never neutral, Seth." She hit the button for the 3rd floor. 3 days earlier, Haley had called me from her car. I could tell she was in her car because she only ever called instead of texted when she was driving and needed her hands to do something nervous, like tap the steering wheel. She said, "I need to ask you something and I need you to say yes before you hear the whole thing." I said, "That's a terrible way to start a request." She said, "I know. Say yes anyway." I didn't say yes. I waited. She exhaled. "Jess and Connor's wedding is this weekend, out in Shenandoah, that barn venue Jess has been talking about for 2 years. I'm a bridesmaid." "I know. You've been stress buying shapewear for 3 weeks. "That's not relevant." A pause. "Tyler is going to be there." I set down the mug I was holding. Tyler had dated Haley for 14 months, which was long enough that our family had started asking questions about rings, and then it ended in the specific way where nobody threw anything or raised their voice, but somehow the quiet was worse. He was one of Connor's college friends. He had been in the wedding party since before they broke up. There was nothing anyone could do about it now. "I just don't want to be the sad bridesmaid," she said. "I don't want the whole weekend to turn into everyone checking on me. I don't want his girlfriend there watching me for signs of damage." "He's bringing someone?" "According to Jess, who told me by accident and then apologized for 11 minutes, yes." I sat down on the arm of my couch. "So what are you asking?" "Come as my date. You already know everyone. Connor likes you. My mom likes you. You know how to talk to Jess's dad without letting him spiral into his opinions about highway infrastructure. That took me 2 years to learn." "I know. You're the only person qualified for this job." I should have told her I'd think about it. I should have said, "Let me check if I have plans," even though she knew I didn't have plans, because Haley had known me since we were 22 and sharing a wall in a cheap apartment complex in Richmond, where the heat worked 3 days out of 7, and we both pretended that was fine. She had been there when I got passed over for a promotion I'd worked 2 years toward and spent a Tuesday night eating cereal over my sink because I didn't have the energy to make a real meal. I had been there the night her dad went into the ER and she couldn't get through to her mom, and she called me from the hospital parking garage because she needed a voice that wasn't scared. I said yes. She said, "Okay. Also, the hotel near the venue was sold out by the time I booked, so I got us an Airbnb. It's supposed to be nice. Farm property." "How many bedrooms?" A pause that told me everything. "The reviews are excellent." The Airbnb had 3 bedrooms. 2 of them were being used by Jess's cousins who had driven up from Charlotte and gotten there first. The remaining option, the one we had apparently been assigned by whatever universal force had decided this weekend needed a degree of difficulty, was the Loft Suite. 1 room. High ceilings. A big iron frame bed with a white quilt that looked like it cost more than my couch. A loveseat, the size of a carry-on suitcase pushed against one wall. I'm 6 feet. The loveseat accommodated approximately my torso. Haley put her bag on the chair near the window and acted like this was a normal thing people did. I stayed near the door with both our bags because I needed something to carry. "The loveseat is decorative," I said. "It has cushions." "Throw pillows." "Those are throw pillows, Haley. You can fold." "I have a spine." "You have 2.5 feet of loveseat and a very important wedding to be functional for tomorrow." She opened the window and the smell of early October came through. Wood smoke, dried grass, something faint and sweet from the apple orchard down the road. "We have slept in worse arrangements." "Name one." "That road trip to Nashville. You slept in the backseat of my Honda." "I was 24. My back was younger." She smiled at the window. The light was going gold outside. In an hour, we had the rehearsal dinner in the main barn. She had a bridesmaid thing before that, toasts to practice, something with flowers. I had a job to do that I was still defining in my head, which was mostly stand next to Haley, be easy to be around, make sure the weekend didn't become about something it wasn't supposed to be about. Hey, I said. She turned. We can handle one bed and a decorative lovey seat. She looked at me for a second, then at the quilt, then back at me. Obviously. But she said it the way she said things when she needed them to be true and wasn't quite there yet. I put the bags down. Go do your bridesmaid thing. I'll figure out the room. She grabbed her garment bag. At the door she paused. Seth. Yeah. Thank you for coming. She didn't make it a joke. She just said it straight, which was unusual enough that I didn't have an answer ready. By the time I thought of one, she was already in the hallway. The rehearsal dinner was in the barn with string lights and long wooden tables and the kind of food, pulled pork, cornbread, 3 types of mac and cheese that makes people loosen up fast. I got there first and found a seat at the table nearest the door, which was habit from years of being the person who needed an easy exit from loud rooms. Connor found me before I'd finished my first drink. He shook my hand too hard the way he always did, like he'd learned handshakes from someone who thought firmness was a personality. You came, he said, genuinely pleased. Haley said you might. She said might. She said probably. She qualifies everything. He flagged down a passing tray and grabbed 2 bottles without looking. Tyler's here. You know that, right? I know. He handed me a beer. He brought someone. Name's Kayla. She seems nice. I don't know. I've met her twice. He looked uncomfortable in the way of a man trying to be a fair witness to a situation involving his fiance's best friend and his college roommate. Jess is stressed about the seating. I told her Haley can handle herself. She can. Yeah. He looked across the barn. But it's easier when someone's in her corner. I didn't answer because Haley walked in right then, in a dark green dress with her hair pulled back, and the room didn't stop or anything. But I noticed the way it continued and she was just in it now, which was different from before. Connor waved. She saw me and crossed the room like she'd known exactly where I'd be. You found the door spot, she said. Always. She took my beer, tried it, handed it back. Tyler's at the far table, left side. I saw. Kayla has very good posture. So do you. I'm actively maintaining it. She straightened slightly. How do I look? Like someone who doesn't need that question answered. She rolled her eyes, but her shoulders dropped a little. Come on, Jess needs us for the toast run-through. I followed her across the barn. Tyler looked up once when we passed. He had the same face he'd always had. Open, pleasant. The kind of face that made people want to explain themselves to him. I put my hand briefly at the small of Haley's back because it was the natural thing to do and because she was walking slightly faster than she needed to, and she slowed down when I did it. We made it to the front of the room. She exhaled once, quietly. I pretended not to hear it. Dinner was the dangerous part. Not because anything went wrong, because nothing did. Haley and I sat together on the long bench at the middle table, surrounded by Jess's family and a handful of Connor's friends I'd met maybe twice, and somewhere in the middle of the cornbread and the second round of drinks, it stopped being a performance. She leaned over and told me what everyone at the table did for work before I could ask, the way she always did, because she knew I hated the fumbling opener of "So, what do you do?" I moved the pepper shaker to her side without thinking because she always wanted it close. When Jess's mom started asking Haley careful questions, the kind of questions that were really about Tyler without saying so, I turned to the woman on my other side and started talking about the venue, loudly enough to give Haley a minute to breathe. She caught me doing it. When I turned back, she gave me a look that meant she'd noticed. I shrugged. She almost smiled. Connor's friend across the table, a guy named Andrew who I think worked in insurance, squinted at us at some point and said, "How long have you two been together?" Haley said without hesitating, "It depends who you ask." I said, "Her aunt has had opinions since 2019. Haley's eyes cut to me, surprised I'd played along that quickly, or surprised I remembered the aunt. Probably both. She said we had the same energy. She said we finished each other's sentences at Thanksgiving. You finished my sentence once and she decided we were inevitable. To be fair, I said, you were struggling. I was not struggling, I was pausing for effect. Andrew nodded like this answered his question, which it did, just not in the way we meant. After that, the table moved on. Haley's foot bumped mine under the bench. Maybe the room was crowded, maybe it wasn't. Tyler came over during the dessert hour. I had been expecting it in the vague way you expect weather, not the specific moment, just the general fact of it. He stopped near the end of our bench and asked Haley how she was doing, and she said, fine, good, really busy with work, which was true. He said she looked great, which was also true. And he said it with the particular tone of a man who understood he no longer had standing to say it, but was saying it anyway, because old habits and the emotional equivalent of touching a bruise to see if it still hurts. Haley smiled the smile I'd seen her use with difficult clients, polished, maintained, the one where if you didn't know her, you'd think she was perfectly at ease. I knew her. I reached across the table for the dessert menu and let my arm rest near hers when I came back, close enough that it was obvious, not so close it was a statement, just present. Tyler's eyes moved to it for a moment. Then he said it was good to see us, and he meant me too, I think, in that way where including both people makes the whole thing feel more casual than it is. He went back to his table. Haley looked at the dessert menu like it required study. You okay? I said, quiet enough that only she could hear. Yes, a beat. Ask me again in 20 minutes. I ordered her the peach cobbler because I knew she'd want it and wouldn't order it herself with all these people watching. When it arrived, she looked at it, then at me. I didn't ask for this. You were about to. She picked up her fork. You are occasionally useful. Occasionally, I've been told. She ate the cobbler. Her shoulders dropped another notch, not all the way, but enough. Back at the Airbnb, the house had gone quiet. Jess's cousins were already in their rooms. The kitchen light was left on. Outside, the wind had picked up, and the trees were moving against the dark blue sky in a way that made the night feel close and private. Haley went upstairs without saying much. I locked the front door, turned off the kitchen light, and followed. The loft suite was warm in a way the rest of the house wasn't. Someone had turned on the small lamp on the nightstand. The quilt looked even more aggressively comfortable than before. I looked at the Loft Suite. It looked back at me without apology. I'll take the loveseat, I said. Haley was at the bathroom door with her overnight bag. Seth. I can. We're adults. She looked at the bed, then back at me. It's a big bed. Don't be a martyr about it. I'm not being a martyr. I'm being a gentleman. You're being a nervous person who is using gentleman as a cover story. Those can coexist. She went into the bathroom. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the window. Outside, the orchard sat in the dark. The apple smell was stronger now, mixed with wood smoke from somewhere down the road. I unlaced my shoes and tried to think about something logistically uncomplicated, like whether I'd packed enough socks. She came out in an oversized shirt and shorts, hair down. I got up and switched with her in the bathroom with the practiced efficiency of two people who had shared one bathroom before, her last apartment in Richmond, after the wall-sharing complex. When her ceiling started leaking and she stayed on my couch for 10 days and we settled into a rhythm of morning schedules without discussing it. When I came back out, she was under the quilt reading something on her phone, or pretending to. I turned off the overhead light. The room went soft. Just the lamp on her side. I got into bed on the far edge, left a reasonable distance between us, lay there staring at the ceiling like a man who had something important to count up there. For a minute, neither of us said anything. Outside, the wind moved through the orchard. Then she said, he looked happy. I didn't pretend not to know who she meant. Yeah. I wanted it to bother me more than it did. Her voice was steady, which meant she had been deciding whether to say it. I thought I'd feel worse seeing him with someone, like there'd be this. She gestured vaguely at the ceiling. Thing, like a punch. But it was more like seeing a photo of a place you used to live. You recognize it, but you don't want to move back. I thought about that. That sounds like being over it. I know. It just took me longer to find out than it should have. A pause. I hate when growth is inconveniently timed. I laughed and the room loosened. Then she turned her head toward me on the pillow, and the laugh faded. Why did you really agree to come this weekend? She asked. I kept my eyes on the ceiling. You asked. That's not a full answer. It's the accurate one. Seth. I turned my head and found her looking at me in the low light, serious, a little tired, the version of Haley that didn't bother with the edges of a question. Because you called from your car, I said. You only call from your car when something matters and you need to keep your hands busy. And when I heard your voice, I stopped. I didn't want you coming to this alone. She held my gaze. It wasn't just about Tyler. It wasn't the question. I understood she was telling me something, not asking. No, I said. It wasn't. The lamp threw a warm line across the quilt between us. She shifted slightly and the mattress moved, and then she was looking at the ceiling again, though something in the room felt different about the direction, like furniture that had been moved an inch, and the space was technically the same, but your body knew. There's always this point with us, I said. I hadn't planned it. I just heard myself saying it, where we're in the middle of something and one of us makes a joke and we both take the exit, like we've got this. I looked for the word emergency side door, and we've been using it for a long time. She was quiet. I'm tired of the side door, I said. She didn't answer right away. The wind moved through the trees. I counted 3 seconds, and then 3 more. Then her phone lit up on the nightstand. A text from Jess, something about the morning schedule, flowers, what time everyone needed to be in the bridal suite. Haley read it and typed a quick answer and set it back down. We didn't pick up exactly where we'd left off, but we didn't pretend the conversation hadn't happened either. After a while, she said, quietly, "Good night, Seth." Night. She turned off the lamp. I lay in the dark and listened to the orchard and her breathing, which was not the breathing of someone asleep. I knew the difference. I had learned it during those 10 days in Richmond. The ceiling leak, the couch, the way she sounded awake but done talking versus actually gone. Neither of us was gone. The truth had found its way into the room the same way drafts do. Not through a door you left open, but through the gaps you didn't think to check. And now it was just there. Sitting with us. Waiting for morning. Wedding days have their own weather. By 9 in the morning, the bridal suite was already loud. Hairspray and too many voices and someone's speaker cycling through a playlist that went from Taylor Swift to Fleetwood Mac without apology. I knocked, delivered coffee to Haley through a 6-inch gap in the door, and retreated before anyone could make me hold a curling iron. She found me an hour later on the porch of the main barn, where I was watching a groundskeeper line up the chairs with the particular focus of a man who needed chairs to be exactly straight. You survived, she said. Delivered the coffee, got out clean. She sat next to me on the porch railing, careful with her bridesmaid dress. It was a dusty blue, the kind of color that's hard to describe but easy to look at. Her hair was up. There were small pearl things in it that I didn't know the name for. She had her phone in her hand and was reading something with a slight frown. Problem? I asked. Seating chart got adjusted. Tyler and Kayla are at table 4 now. We were moved to table 4. I looked at her. She looked at me. Jess didn't mean to, she said. She's dealing with 17 things. I know. I can ask. Don't ask Jess to fix the seating chart on her wedding morning. She put her phone away. Right. A pause. It'll be fine. It'll be fine, I agreed. She looked out at the lawn. Chairs were getting filled with guests in fall colors. Somewhere behind the barn, someone was testing the sound system. A chord, then static, then a chord again. I had a thought last night, she said, not looking at me. Yeah? About the side door. She kept her voice even, like she was reporting something factual. I've been using it too. It's not just you. I waited. I think I got into the habit of being the one who made the joke first so the conversation couldn't go somewhere that, she paused, choosing somewhere I wasn't sure I was ready for. And now? She finally looked at me. Now I'm standing at a wedding in a field in Virginia, wondering why I feel more like myself standing here with you than I have felt anywhere in the last 8 months. I held her eyes. Haley, I know what it sounds like. It sounds right. She exhaled. Don't be reasonable when I'm trying to be brave. It throws me off. A laugh moved through me, quick and helpless, and she shook her head. But her mouth was going. Then she looked back at the lawn and said, softer, what I said last night about it not just being about Tyler. I know. Let me finish. Okay. I asked you because I missed you, specifically, not someone to come with me. You. She picked at the railing paint with one finger. I missed knowing what you were going to order before you ordered it. I missed you sending me pictures of things that reminded you of the obscure conversation we had 3 weeks earlier. I missed someone knowing my whole context without me having to do the setup first. She stopped. I've been living like those things weren't data, like they were just friendship static. But I think I was lying to myself, and I think I'd been doing it for a while. The groundskeeper had finished with the chairs. The sound system played a full chord and held it. Somewhere in the barn, someone laughed loudly. I said, I've been calling it friendship for so long, it became easier than calling it what it was. She looked at me. I love you, I said. Not instead of being your friend, not complicated by it, just also, alongside it, for longer than I was honest about. She was quiet. Behind us the barn doors opened and a wave of music and voices spilled out. We have a wedding to get through, she said. I know. In 4 hours I have to stand in front of 80 people and not look like I'm thinking about something else. You'll manage. I'll manage because you'll be at table 4 looking completely normal and that will help me hold it together. I can do that. She slid off the railing and smoothed her dress, and she was almost back to bridesmaid mode, the composed version, the one with good posture. Then she stopped and looked at me over her shoulder. After the cake, she said. After the cake, I said. The ceremony was in a meadow at the edge of the orchard, with the mountains in the distance and the sky the color of old denim. Jess cried before she got to Connor. Connor pretended he didn't cry and failed immediately. The officiant was a friend of theirs who had gotten ordained online and gave a speech that was genuinely funny in the middle and genuinely true at the end. I sat at table 4, which turned out to be fine. Tyler and Kayla were at the other end. We exchanged one polite nod in the way of two people who have no business having a conflict and know it. Kayla seemed, as Connor had reported, nice. They talked mostly to each other, which made the whole thing easy. Haley stood up at the front in her dusty blue dress and gave her toast, and she was sharp and warm and made the whole room laugh and then made Jess cry again. And I watched from table 4, thinking about every version of the last 4 years in which I had watched her walk into a room and told myself it was nothing. It was just Haley. It was just what you felt about someone who knew you all the way through. I had been so careful to give it the wrong name. Dancing started after dinner. I am not a dancer in the way that some people are not swimmers, technically capable but uncomfortable and very aware of it. Haley knew this and dragged me onto the floor anyway, which she had been doing since a friend's birthday party in 2021, where she said, just move enough that people can tell you're alive, and I have been following that advice ever since. We danced through 2 songs that were easy and fast and didn't require any decisions. Then the band slowed down and she just stayed, which meant I did too. Her hand was in mine. My other hand was at her waist. Table 4 worked out, she said. Told you. He didn't even make it weird. No. I barely thought about him all day. She tilted her head up slightly, thoughtful. That feels like information. Pretty good information. Yeah. Her thumb moved over my knuckles, small and slow. I thought about you, though. The band played something without words. Guests moved around us. I thought about what you said on the porch, she said, and what you said last night. And the thing you said at dinner that I didn't respond to because I wasn't ready. She looked at me directly. I'm ready now. I said, okay. I love you, she said. In the way that means I want to be in the same room as you for a very long time. In the way that means I want to tell you things first. In the way that means. She stopped, then let herself smile. I moved the pepper shaker to my side at dinner and I did it without thinking, and then I realized you already knew to do that and it's been like that for years. How was I going to miss that? I don't know, I said honest. We were both very committed to not knowing. We were. The song ended. A faster one started. Neither of us moved. So, she said. So, I said. After the cake, she said, we have a conversation. We're having it now. She considered this. This is the before conversation, the one where we figure out we need to talk. What's the after conversation? The one where we figure out what we do next. She squeezed my hand once and stepped back. Come on. They're doing the bouquet toss, and Jess made me promise not to hide in the bathroom for it. I followed her off the floor. Connor's grandmother was watching us from a table near the door, a small woman with white hair and a pleased look on her face that I hadn't earned yet. When we passed, she said, without anyone asking, you two were the best thing at this wedding. Then she turned back to her cake. Haley said, under her breath, I love old women who say what they see. They're operating with a different set of social rules. I want those rules. After the cake and the bouquet and the sparkler send-off for Jess and Connor, the party moved inside and stretched itself across 2 more hours in that loose, full way of the end of good evenings. Haley stayed through most of it, running on bridesmaid momentum. I drank water and talked to Connor's dad about fly fishing, which I know nothing about, and he appreciated the audience. By the time we got back to the Airbnb, it was after 11 and the house was quiet. Jess's cousin's lights were off. The kitchen was dark except for the stove hood. We went upstairs without talking, not the silence of avoidance. The other kind, where things have been said and they're still settling, and there's no need to fill the space. In the loft suite, the lamp was still on from this morning. The quilt was still perfect. The decorative love seat made no apologies. Haley sat on the edge of the bed and took out the pearl things from her hair one by one and set them on the nightstand. I sat in the chair near the window and untied my shoes for the second time in 2 days in this room and thought about how rooms hold things. The way old wood holds heat. Not everything, just the important events. So, she said. The after conversation, I said. The after conversation. She looked at her hands, then at me. I meant what I said on the dance floor. I know. And you meant what you said on the porch? And last night, yeah. She was quiet for a moment. Outside, an owl did something in the orchard. The distant sound of a car on the rural road. I want to be careful, she said. Not because I'm unsure, because I think what we have is worth being careful with. I agree. I don't want us to rush and turn it into a story and then look back in a year and realize we skipped something. We've been skipping something for 4 years, I said, but I take your point. She laughed short and honest. Fair. We go slow, I said. We stay honest. We stop using the side door. She looked at me steadily. No more side door. No more side door. She stood up and came to the chair and for a second just stood there, like she was deciding something she'd already decided. The way you pause at the edge of a dock when the water is cold and you're going in anyway. Then she leaned down and kissed me, unhurried, with one hand on the side of my face. And it wasn't a surprise or a performance or the relief of something finally given permission. It was just the thing itself. Simple and clear and carrying, underneath it, 4 years of everything that had led here. When she pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine, and neither of us said anything for a moment. No more side door, she said again, softer. No more side door. She straightened, crossed to her bag. I'm going to sleep. It's been an emotionally dense 36 hours. It has. You take the actual pillow this time. I saw you fold that throw pillow in half last night. Structural compromise, I said. It held. She climbed under the quilt, and I turned off the lamp and lay down, and the dark was different now. Not the dark of 2 people pretending the room wasn't doing something to them. Just ordinary dark. The comfortable kind. About 2 minutes later, she said, Seth. Yeah. I'm glad I called from the car. I looked at the ceiling. Me too. 6 months later, we went to Jess and Connor's housewarming. The new place was in Fredericksburg, a brick colonial with a backyard full of garden beds that Jess was very serious about. There was chili on the stove and football on the TV that nobody was fully watching, and Haley stole a chip off my plate without asking, because she always tested the first one before committing. Connor's grandmother was there. She was in the corner armchair with a blanket over her knees and a glass of sweet tea and the same expression she'd had at the wedding. That specific, amused satisfaction of someone who has watched a situation develop exactly as she expected. When we said hello, she held my hand with both of hers and looked at Haley and said, "I told you at the wedding, you were the best thing there." Haley said, "You said we were." "That's what I said." She smiled and let me go and turned back to her tea, done with us in the best possible way. Haley tucked herself against my side and reached for another chip, and I thought about that fall night in the orchard dark and how long it had taken us to stop arguing with what we already knew, about how the truth has a patience that's almost inconvenient, how it'll just wait, steady and unhurried, until you're ready to call it by its right name. We got there eventually, beautifully late and not a day too soon. I think about the moment Haley called me from her car a lot. Not the words she used, the fact that she called at all. She could have texted, she almost always texted, but she called, which meant something was too big to type out and too important to wait. And when I heard her voice, I didn't need the rest of the sentence to know I was going. That's the thing about honesty. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind you work up to in a speech, but the quiet, daily kind. The kind where you stop lying to yourself about what you actually want. I had been dishonest with myself for a long time, not cruelly, not even consciously, just conveniently. It was easier to call what I felt for Haley friendship, because friendship was something I knew how to hold without shaking. Naming it as something else meant I had to do something about it, and doing something about it meant risking the thing I already had, which was her. So I kept using the side door. I kept making the joke before the conversation could go somewhere. True, I was, if I'm being honest, a coward dressed up in the costume of a good friend. What changed wasn't the wedding. It wasn't the one bed or the orchard or even the things she said on the porch. What changed was that I got tired of being smart in the wrong direction. I had spent years using everything I knew about Haley, what she ordered when she was scared, how she breathed when she was awake but done talking, to take care of her, and then I'd turn all that knowledge into evidence that we were just close, just comfortable, just this. There's a kind of intelligence that becomes its own obstacle when you use it to talk yourself out of things that are true. I had been doing that for 4 years. The courage wasn't the kiss. It was the sentence before it, saying out loud in a dark room to the person it was about that I was tired of the side door. That took more out of me than anything else that weekend. Because once you say the true thing, you can't unknow that you said it. It's in the room. It stays. Haley was brave in her own way. She stood on that porch in her bridesmaid dress and said, "I missed you" in stupid little ways, and she didn't dress it up or make it a joke or hand me an exit. She just said it. That took something, more than people give her credit for, because she's funny and fast, and it's easy to assume people like that don't have to push through anything to be honest. They do. Sometimes more than the rest of us, because humor is the best hiding place there is. What I know now is that good things don't wait forever. They have patience, but it isn't infinite. The truth about Haley and me could have stayed a truth I never did anything with. I could have kept calling, kept showing up, kept knowing her better than anyone and doing nothing with the knowing. That would have been a loss I never would have fully understood, because you can't grieve a life you never let yourself want. Instead, I said it, she said it back. We went slow and stayed honest and stopped using the side door, and it turned out that the thing I had been so careful to protect, by not risking it, us, was exactly what survived. That's the only version of this I'd want to tell,